So I think that there might actually be quite a bit of ignorance on this topic nationally, is that people just don't really understand that DC really is its own city. They think of DC as just being sort of the government hub that's on the border of Maryland and Virginia. And did I get that right?
That's
showing
right.
my ignorance here.
No,
I've actually been there.
And that's the federal district, and that is in Ward 6. There's
Right.
7 other wards that are full of people that aren't even connected to anything that's happening down on Pennsylvania Avenue.
So what is the process then to actually getting DC statehood passed? Because as we know, there's this unfortunate wrinkle involved that means that by giving you 2 seats in the Senate, those seats would most likely go blue, right? Mm-hmm. It's assumed. And that means that one party is not going to want to vote for it because they'd essentially be giving potential control of the Senate to the Democrats.
Which we already have.
How do we right, but I mean, they're making it more difficult for them to win control. I mean, giving up 2 seats. How do we get past that particular wrinkle? Because that seems like it's a tough hill to climb.
I mean, they could just change their campaigns.
Well, I mean, yeah, right. Realistically.
That sounds like a them problem.
Not idealistically. Well, it's an us problem because we need their votes, don't we? What is the what do we need? Like how do you get this bill passed? Oh, okay. So
let's talk about a perfect case scenario. But I'm just, the argument that you just made is the one that grieves me the most, because at the end of the day, and Mitch McConnell ultimately articulated that. He said the quiet part out loud. See, for years,
which he does a lot more these days.
Yeah, that's interesting.
For years, they used to try to make the statehood issue about DC being incompetent and unable to manage and govern ourselves, needing to have this congressional oversight, which had a whole bunch of racist overtones because at the time, DC, and still, even though we're no longer majority Black, which we were back in the day at one time, DC was almost 80% Black. They called us Chocolate City. Now,
wow,
that was our nickname. Now we're Mocha. We're about
got a little cream in there,
little latte going on, but still, one of the largest plurality of Black residents, for a metropolitan city in the country. And so when we started, the mayor started balancing budgets and our numbers started looking good, then it was like, now what's your argument about statehood? Because they have demonstrated now that they are fiscally responsible and can make decisions. Or so now Mitch said, well, what it actually is we can't let them get statehood because they're going to get two more Democratic seats in the Senate, and we can't have that.
And let's be real, we knew that at the end of the day that was really the only real politic thing happening here, and everything else was kind of just explanations to justify that.
Exactly. So my thing is this: first of all, you can't stop something that's inevitable, first and foremost. So you can delay it, but this whole fear even that you had about the Democrats regaining control of the Senate just happened to you in Georgia. So while you were trying to stop, and I know we still have to defend those seats and hold on to it, but the fact is, eventually there will be a Democratic majority in the Senate. So why don't we just look at the statehood issue on its merit? Not from a political standpoint, but can we at least from a patriotic standpoint suggest that it is unconstitutional to deny voting rights to over 700,000 individuals who pay taxes yet have no representation? They've got more population than the state of Wyoming and Vermont, yet both of those states have 2 senators representing them. So it's not, we don't necessarily, we do have representation in the House with a seat like that I'm running for,
but
we
fake.
have nothing.
You don't have a vote.
Right. But we don't have Senate representation.
Right.
And so how do we get it? Well, if things were, equitable and people were, not acting from a political place, the idea would be to get it passed in the House, which it passed in the House for the first time last June. Okay. So
we're on the first step.
Really excited because for the first time we got the House. the bill for statehood passed. Boom.
How many votes
Senate
did
it's 218.
It only requires a simple majority in the House to pass?
Yes.
Okay. And is it the same in the Senate? It only needs a simple majority?
No. That's the rub. You need 50. You need 60.
Why?
Well, that's the general passage rule is that you have to have 60 votes in order for a floor vote to be brought, unless you are going to do a they're abolishing the filibuster.
Right.
If we abolish the filibuster, then it would only require a simple majority, and we would have that with the 51st vote. But that would require folks being willing to do that.
Now, isn't there one vote or one bill per session that they're...
Yeah, so they're in the process of rewriting the House bill again. And then they're going to try to, I've been watching, and so I think I saw where Delegate Norton is up to maybe like 211 sponsors right now. And then Senator Tom Carper of Delaware introduced the Senate bill. And the last time I checked, it had 39 signatures. Now, there's another thing on that too. So in an ideal world, it would be bipartisan. It would be 50 Democratic senators, 10 Republican senators, and it would be brought to the floor, and we would get the vote, and statehood would be done. But realistically, that's not looking like it's going to kind of pass. So these other conversations around abolishing the filibuster, I even read something about a carve out. I have to learn more about that, but that there's some kind of carve out you can do where you can just present statehood as like a standalone issue and do a simple majority, but I'm not exactly sure all the dynamics in that. But I think the current expectation is that we need to push for the possible abolishing of the filibuster, because that as it stands right now, that'd be about the only way that we could get it across the goal line. But here's this too. That will require all of the Democratic senators, and you would think they would all be on, right?
You would think, right?
But there's a couple that's wavering. Joe mentioned Christian Cinema, that aren't quite sure if they're going to sign on to. I'm like,
which again, how did you get a Democratic seat if you aren't sure if you're going to do Democratic shit?
You ever been to West Virginia?
I've been to West Virginia. I have, in fact, been to West Virginia. I'm not going back.
Then you understand a little bit more of what type of Democrat Joe Manchin is and what type of a Democrat you need to be to win in West Virginia. So that does make things a little bit more difficult for us. But you do think that there is some hope for this bill?
There's always going to be hope. And at the end of the day, listen, if it winds up that we just have to start winning more Democratic seats and we just get 60 Democrat votes and we can just bring it across ourselves, that would be the bomb, right? So that's my whole, like, if y'all want to keep, you're not going to stop what is meant to be. So, if all these little, sort of roadblocks you're trying to throw up in there, we're eventually going to find a way around. DC statehood is inevitable. So either you do it now voluntarily or you're going to do it involuntarily, but it's going to happen. And
that's amazing. I love that message. I love that message. You're inspiring hope in the process, because I think a lot of people that have looked into DC statehood that may have advocated for it in the past that definitely agree and are on board with it, maybe they feel the hope has kind of come out of the sails a little bit. So hearing you speak about it in those terms is really inspiring. And I really look forward to you continuing to hammer that point home, because people need to hear that. And they need to hear these arguments for why it's important that DC has statehood, and hear them on the national stage as well, because not enough people in other states are hearing that,
Well, I will say, and there are huge pushes and wonderful organizations, DC Vote 51 for 51, that are pushing these messages, going to state houses around the country, because this isn't just a DC issue. We need, folks in Iowa calling their senators and letting them know. And so many people are kind of unaware of the DC statehood issue and the fact that we aren't a state. They don't really, like we were saying earlier, understand about DC having a city that's separate and apart with what's happening in Washington. But let me also say this, that in championing the message, it has come to the forefront again in light of what happened on January the 6th.
Yes. Yes.
Right? We were hamstrung and couldn't even call the National Guard to protect ourselves because we got to go through the government to get our own residents covered. And Mayor Bowser, she actually requested National Guard support 3 days before the 6th and was denied.
Wow.
And so on January 3rd, she had put it in and was denied the backup. And then when all hell broke loose on the 6th, she's still calling and couldn't get any response from the administration. And it's like our city, I mean, she was able to dispatch like the DC Metropolitan Police to kind of go give some backup, but we had to wait for get phone calls back, and the Secretary of the Army and the Pentagon and all these other, we had to go through all these layers just for DC to ask permission for our residents to be protected. And that's just unacceptable. Yeah. So that has thrust the statehood conversation back to the forefront, even in the sense that Mayor Bowser, has called upon, Joe Biden to put statehood in his first 100 days agenda to look at, so that we don't find ourselves in that situation again. So if you're looking in the news these days, there is a lot of talk around that because of what happened. But the key and the goal is keeping it in the news so that it doesn't, fade away. And the way to do that is just to keep the conversation and get people beyond DC, talking about it as well.
Thanks for checking out this clip from our show.
To watch more clips or full episodes, click on our profile below.
If you want to stay up to date on all of our new episodes and videos, click subscribe.
And if you have any ideas for future guests or topics that you would like to see us cover on the show,
leave us a message in the comments or connect with us on any of our social media channels at Funtime Program.
Or on our website at funtimeprogram.com.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.